Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yes, welcome back.
Today we're going to be talking about precognition, and we'll be taking a deep dive into Eric Wargo's book.
Time loops, precognition, retrocausation, and the unconscious.
That's right, and as always, we will not be shying away from any of the hard questions.
Absolutely.
And we're going to be diving into some of the fascinating anecdotes and scientific evidence that Wargo presents in this book.
So are we really going to try and see if we can see the future?
I mean, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And Wargo starts off the book really strong with a lot of anecdotal evidence and stories that I have to admit kind of sent chills down my spine.
Like what?
Well, I mean, have you heard of this book, Futility?
No.
Okay, so this is a novel that was written 14 years before the Titanic sank
Okay.
about a supposedly unsinkable ship
Oh.
called the Titan that hit an iceberg and went down.
Wow.
Yeah, and there are just so many parallels. It's really eerie.
Okay, so we have a fictional story that seemed to predict a real-life event.
Exactly.
And this is where things start to get interesting with precognition, because is it really just a coincidence, or is there something more there?
Right, and he also talks about the Aberfan disaster in Wales, where a coal waste tip collapsed on a village school.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, and there were all these reports of people having dreams about this tragedy before it happened.
Okay, now that one I definitely heard of before. That's one of those stories that really makes you wonder if there's something to this whole precognition thing.
Yeah, but I do want to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Sure.
Couldn't these just be, coincidences, or maybe people are just remembering these dreams more vividly after the fact because of how tragic the events were?
You're bringing up a good point. There's something called hindsight bias, which basically means that after something happens, especially something tragic,
Right.
we tend to look back and see patterns or warning signs that weren't really that obvious beforehand.
Yeah, so how do we know if these precognitive experiences are genuine or if our brains are just trying to make sense of chaos?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And that's what Wargo tries to tackle in his book.
Okay.
He explores a lot of different theories and experiments
Uh-huh.
that try to get at the heart of precognition. One of the people he talks about is J.W. Dunn, who wrote this book called An Experiment with Time back in the early 1900s.
Okay.
Dunn had this idea that precognition might be more about personal experiences rather than these big world events.
So you're saying, like, I might have a dream about something that happens to me, but not necessarily about something like the Titanic sinking.
Exactly. Dunn was really interested in precognitive dreams, and he proposed this model of time that he called serialism.
Serialism.
Yeah, he basically saw time as a series of moments, like frames in a film.
Okay.
And he thought that maybe our minds could somehow access these frames from the future and experience them as precognitive dreams.
So, like, our minds are time traveling through our own lives.
It's a pretty wild idea, right?
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it definitely challenges the way we usually think about time as this straight line.
Right.
But Dunn's theory suggests that the past, present, and future might all be happening at the same time.
Whoa.
And our consciousness is just moving through these different moments in a non-linear way.
Okay, my brain is officially doing backflips now.
I know, it's a lot to take in.
It is. So if Dunn was onto something so groundbreaking, why aren't his ideas more mainstream?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Dunn's work was based on his own personal experiences and anecdotal evidence,
I see.
which makes it hard to test scientifically.
Right.
But even though Dunn's ideas might not be widely accepted, there is a growing body of scientific research that's taking precognition more seriously now.
Really?
Yeah, and they're starting to explore how it might actually work.
That's fascinating.
It is, and we'll get into some of those studies in a bit. But first, I think it's important to understand the psychology behind precognition. Wargo talks about how a lot of these precognitive experiences happen in altered states of consciousness, like when we're dreaming or in that hypnagogic state right before we fall asleep, or even during moments of intense focus or flow.
So you're saying, like, when you're so engrossed in something that you completely lose track of time.
Exactly. Those kinds of states might allow us to perceive reality differently.
Mhm.
Maybe the boundaries of time become a bit blurry.
So maybe our subconscious minds are picking up on signals from the future.
That's a possibility. Wargo definitely explores that idea in his book.
Okay, so we've got these intriguing anecdotes that challenge our understanding of linear time.
Yeah.
We've got this model of serialism where our minds could be time traveling.
Uh-huh.
And we've got the idea that our subconscious might be tapping into the future.
Right.
Where do we go from here?
Now it's time to dive into the science. Wargo highlights some pretty controversial experiments that suggest precognition might be more than just coincidence or wishful thinking.
Okay, let's get into it. This is where it gets really interesting.
So one of the researchers that Wargo talks about is Daryl Bem at Cornell University.
Okay.
And Bem did some experiments that really got people talking in the field of parapsychology.
What kind of experiments?
Well, he basically took these classic psychology experiments and flipped them on their head.
Flipped them? How?
So imagine like a typical memory experiment where you're shown a list of words,
Okay.
and then later you're asked to recall as many as you can.
Right.
And usually the words you see first are easier to remember because they kind of prime your brain.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's called priming.
Priming.
Yeah. But Bem decided to test what would happen if he showed people the words after they were already asked to recall them.
So he's basically saying the future is influencing the past.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
How is that even possible?
That's the question everyone was asking. And the crazy thing is that in some of his experiments, the results actually suggested that the future stimuli were affecting past behavior.
Whoa, hold on. So are we saying that time travel is real?
Not exactly.
Mm.
Bem's findings are super controversial.
I bet.
A lot of researchers have questioned his methods and the way he analyzed his data.
Okay, so where does that leave us? Is precognition just a statistical error?
It might not be that simple.
Yeah.
While Bem's experiments might not be definitive proof of precognition, they do show that we need to keep investigating these phenomena.
Okay, so what other evidence is there?
There's this whole area of research called presentiment.
Presentiment.
Yeah, and these studies measure things like heart rate, skin conductance, pupil dilation, all those physiological responses, and they see how people react to stimuli that are presented randomly.
So they're basically looking at how our bodies react before we even know what's going to happen.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that some of these studies have found that there are these tiny but measurable changes in those physiological responses a few seconds before something surprising or emotionally rousing happens.
So our bodies are reacting as if they already know what's coming, even though we're not consciously aware of it yet.
That's what it looks like.
That's really freaky. It makes you think about how much control we really have over our own reactions.
It really does. It raises questions about the relationship between our conscious and subconscious minds and how they might be experiencing time differently.
Right, because we were talking earlier about how dreams could be glimpses into the future.
Exactly.
But isn't there also that theory about dreams being related to memory processing?
Yeah, that's the mnemonic theory of dreaming.
The mnemonic theory.
It basically says that dreams are the brain's way of sorting through and consolidating memories.
Okay, so are you saying that our dreams could be processing memories from the future?
It's a possibility. If we entertain the idea that our minds can access information from the future, then maybe our dreams are incorporating those future experiences into our memory networks.
It's like our brains are time-traveling librarians, going through experiences from all different points in our timeline.
I like that analogy. It definitely challenges the traditional view of dreams as just being about repressed desires from the past.
Right, it's like Freud might have been looking in the wrong direction.
Maybe. So Wargo suggests that this idea of precognition could offer a whole new way to understand our dreams.
Makes sense.
He even proposes that some recurring dreams, especially those really disturbing ones, might actually be precognitive glimpses of future challenges or traumas.
That's kind of scary. The idea that our dreams could be warning us about bad stuff that's going to happen.
It can be unsettling, but it could also be helpful, right? If we have some kind of heads up, maybe we can prepare ourselves or even avoid those situations altogether.
True, but then doesn't that bring up the whole free will versus fate debate?
It definitely does. If we can see the future, even if it's just glimpses, does that mean our choices are already made?
Or do we have the power to change things?
That's the big question.
Yeah, and I have a feeling Wargo has some thoughts on that.
He does. He dives into all sorts of philosophical and ethical implications of precognition.
Like what?
Well, for example, if precognition is real, does that change how we think about responsibility? If we had a premonition about something bad happening, are we to blame if we didn't try to stop it?
That's a tough one.
It is. And then there's the question of how precognition affects our own personal narratives.
Like if we know something about our future, does that change how we experience the present?
Exactly. Imagine knowing you're going to achieve some big goal. Does that make the journey less meaningful because you already know the outcome? Or does it give you a sense of purpose?
It's like knowing the ending of a movie before you watch it.
Right. Some people might find it spoils the fun, while others might enjoy seeing how everything leads up to that ending.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects.
And that brings us to another concept that Wargo explores, Jung's idea of synchronicity.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. those meaningful coincidences that seem like more than just chance.
Exactly. Jung believed that synchronicities were expressions of a deeper connection between our inner and outer worlds,
Hmm.
and maybe even between the past, present, and future.
So how does that tie into precognition?
Wargo suggests that some synchronicities might actually be precognition in disguise. He even reinterprets one of Jung's most famous anecdotes through this lens,
Which one?
the scarab beetle story.
Oh, yeah, I think I've heard of that, but I don't remember the details.
So Jung was treating this patient who was very rational and didn't believe in the unconscious mind.
Okay.
And during one session, she was telling him about a dream she had about a golden scarab beetle.
Hmm.
And at that exact moment, a real scarab beetle flew into the room and landed on the windowsill.
Wow, what are the odds?
Right. It's crazy. Jung saw this as a powerful example of synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that couldn't be explained rationally.
Yeah.
But Wargo suggests that maybe the patient's dream was actually a precognitive glimpse of that future encounter with the beetle.
So her mind was somehow picking up on that event before it happened and putting it into her dream.
Exactly. It adds a whole new layer to the story.
Yeah.
And it highlights how precognition, if it's real, can blur the lines between our thoughts and dreams and the actual events that happen in our lives.
It's like those movies where the main character has a premonition and then those random images from their dreams start showing up in real life.
Exactly. It makes you wonder if we're all part of this big cosmic movie where the past, present, and future are all intertwined.
This is all mind-blowing, but I gotta be honest, I'm still a bit skeptical.
Yeah.
Is there any scientific explanation for how precognition could even be possible?
Well, our understanding of physics is constantly evolving, especially in the realm of quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics.
Okay.
Now you're really getting into the deep end.
It's not as complicated as it sounds. One of the key ideas in quantum mechanics is non-locality, which basically means that particles can be connected across vast distances, and they can influence each other instantaneously.
So like they're communicating faster than the speed of light.
In a way, yeah. And some physicists think that this non-locality could extend to time as well, meaning that events in the future could actually influence events in the past.
Whoa, are you saying time travel might be real?
It's not as far-fetched as it might seem. There's a whole field of theoretical physics exploring this idea of retrocausation.
Retrocausation.
Which is basically the idea that the future can influence the past.
Okay, my brain is officially fried. How does that even make sense?
Think of it like throwing a rock into a pond. The ripples spread out from where the rock hit, right?
Yeah.
But what if those ripples could also travel backwards in time?
Backwards?
Yeah, and influence the water before the rock was even thrown.
So you're saying the effect is happening before the cause?
Yeah, it's a mind-bending concept, I know.
Yeah.
It challenges everything we think we know about cause and effect.
It definitely does. So if this retrocausation thing is real, what does it mean?
It opens up a whole new world of possibilities. It suggests that our choices in the present might not only be shaping our future, but also influencing our past.
Whoa.
It's like our lives are woven together in this grand tapestry of time where all the threads are interconnected.
That's a beautiful image. But it also makes me wonder if we really have free will, or if we're just playing out a script that's already written.
That's the ultimate question. And I think Wargo's point is that even if precognition and retrocausation are real, it doesn't necessarily negate our free will. It just means that our choices are operating within a much more complex system than we thought.
So instead of thinking of time as a straight line, maybe we should imagine it more like a circle or a spiral, where the past, present, and future are all influencing each other.
Exactly. And that ties into Wargo's concept of time loops, where our actions in the present might be influenced by information from the future, which in turn might be shaped by choices we made in the past.
So it's like we're constantly creating and recreating our reality through this intricate dance of time.
I think that's a great way to put it, and that's where Wargo's book really shines. He doesn't just present these ideas as abstract concepts. He encourages us to really think about what they mean for our lives,
Right.
how they impact the choices we make, and how we understand our place in the grand scheme of things.
It's like he's giving us a new lens through which to view reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a reality that's both exciting and a little bit frightening.
I can see that. And speaking of exciting and frightening, Wargo also explores how precognition has shown up in literature and popular culture, right?
He does. He talks about authors like Philip K. Dick, whose science fiction often dealt with precognitive abilities and altered realities.
Right.
And of course, he circles back to Morgan Robertson and that novel Futility, which seemed to predict the Titanic disaster.
Yeah, it's like these artists and writers are tapping into something deeper, a part of the human experience that's sensitive to the echoes of the future.
I think you're right. It makes you wonder if precognition isn't just a scientific concept, but something that's woven into our collective consciousness.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from anecdotes to experiments to philosophy and even literature. What are the key takeaways from all of this?
Yeah, it really feels like we've gone on a journey through time and back.
And I'm not sure if I'm more excited or terrified by what we might find in the future.
I know, right? It's both exhilarating and a little bit unsettling.
So, after all this mind-bending discussion about time loops and precognition, what are some of the key takeaways from Wargo's book?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that we shouldn't just dismiss precognition as something out there. There's actually a growing body of evidence, both anecdotal and scientific, that suggests our minds might be interacting with time in ways we don't fully understand yet.
Okay, so how can we apply these ideas to our everyday lives? I mean, what's a practical takeaway here?
Orgo really emphasizes the importance of paying attention to our intuition.
Our gut feelings.
Exactly, those hunches and nudges that come from our subconscious.
Okay.
He suggests that these might actually be signals from our future selves, guiding us toward certain paths or warning us about potential problems.
So instead of ignoring those intuitive feelings, we should maybe pause and listen to them.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a deeper awareness of what's going on inside us and recognizing that our subconscious minds might be picking up on things that our conscious minds haven't processed yet.
This makes me think about dreams again. If our dreams are incorporating experiences from the future, should we be taking them more seriously?
Absolutely. Wargo recommends keeping a dream journal not just to remember what you dreamt about, but to look for patterns and recurring themes or symbols.
So like our dreams are giving us personalized messages from the future, but we need to learn how to decipher them.
Exactly. And it's not just about predicting specific events. It's about gaining a broader understanding of the forces that might be shaping our lives.
So it's not about winning the lottery or avoiding a car accident,
Right. It's more about understanding our own journeys through time.
and recognizing that our past, present, and future are all intertwined in ways we might not fully grasp.
Precisely. And I think that's one of the most empowering aspects of Wargo's book. It suggests that we might have more influence over the course of our lives than we think.
Both backwards and forwards in time.
Exactly.
It's both exciting and daunting at the same time.
Yeah.
Like if our choices today are shaping our tomorrow and rippling back to influence our yesterday, that's a lot of responsibility.
It is. But I think it's also a call to action.
How so?
It's a reminder to live intentionally, to make choices that are aligned with our values, and to realize that every moment is an opportunity to create a better future for ourselves and the world around us.
It's a powerful message. It makes me wonder if precognition becomes more widely accepted. How will it change our society?
That's a great question. It could have a huge impact on everything from personal decisions to our legal system to how we understand history itself.
Imagine precognitive abilities being used in courtrooms or in politics.
It's both fascinating and a bit frightening to think about.
It definitely raises a lot of ethical questions and philosophical debates.
It does, and I think that's what makes Wargo's book so valuable.
Yeah.
He doesn't just present these ideas as abstract concepts. He encourages us to grapple with their real-world implications.
It's like he's giving us a glimpse into a potential future where our understanding of time and consciousness has been revolutionized.
And it's up to us to figure out how to navigate that future.
To embrace the unknown and question our assumptions and be open to the possibility that the universe is far more wondrous than we can even imagine.
I think that sums it up perfectly.
Well, Eric Wargo's Time Loops has definitely given us a lot to think about.
It has. And for anyone who's interested in exploring the mysteries of time and consciousness, I highly recommend checking it out.
And remember, the next time you have a strange dream or a gut feeling, don't just brush it off.
It might be a message from your future self, guiding you towards a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into precognition and time loops.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep your minds open to the infinite possibilities of time and consciousness.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.